The 1976 Summer Olympics, officially called the Games of the 21st Olympiad, was an international multi-sport event in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. In 1976, the first Olympic Games hosted by Canada, Montreal was awarded the rights to the 1976 Games on May 12, 1970, at the 69th IOC session in Amsterdam, over the bids of Moscow and Los Angeles. Calgary and Vancouver would later host Winter Olympic Games in Canada. It is so far the only Summer Olympic Games to be held in Canada. Most sovereign African, and a few other, nations boycotted the Montreal Games when the International Olympic Committee would not support, as had other international sporting organizations, the banning from competition of those countries whose athletes had participated in sporting events in South Africa as long as apartheid continued. The New Zealand rugby team had been touring South Africa during apartheid and were excluded from international sporting events due to implementation of the anti-apartheid policy. Host city selection. The vote occurred on May 12, 1970, at the 69th IOC session in Amsterdam, Netherlands. While Los Angeles and Moscow were viewed as the favorites given that they represented the world's two main powers, many of the smaller countries supported Montreal as an underdog and as a politically neutral site for the Games. Los Angeles was eliminated after the first round and Montreal won in the second round. Moscow would go on to host the 1980 Summer Olympics and Los Angeles the 1984 Summer Olympics. One blank vote was cast in the second and final round. Toronto made a third attempt for the Olympics and failed to get the support of the Canadian Olympic Committee, who selected Montreal instead. Organization. Robert Bourassa, then the Premier of Quebec, first asked Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau to advise Canada's monarch, Elizabeth II, to attend the opening of the Games. However, Bourassa later became unsettled about how unpopular the move might be with sovereigntists in the province, annoying Trudeau, who had already made arrangements. The leader of the parti COIs at the time, René Lévesque, sent his own letter to Buckingham Palace, asking the Queen to refuse her Prime Minister's request, though she did not oblige Lévesque as he was out of his jurisdiction in offering advice to the sovereign. Opening ceremony. The opening ceremony of the 1976 Summer Olympic Games was held on Saturday, July 17, 1976 at the Olympic Stadium in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, in front of an audience of some 73,000 in the stadium, and an estimated 500 million watching on television. The ceremony marked the opening of the Games of the 21st Olympiad, the first Olympics ever held in Canada. Following an airshow by the Royal Canadian Air Force's Snowbirds flying squad in the sunny skies above the stadium, the ceremony officially began at 3 p.m. with a trumpet fanfare and the arrival of Queen Elizabeth II, Queen of Canada. The Queen was accompanied by Michael Morris, Lord Killarney, President of the International Olympic Committee, and was greeted to an orchestral rendition of O Canada, an arrangement that for many years later would be used in schools across the country as well as in the daily sign-off of the CBC's broadcast. The Queen also entered the royal box with her consort, Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, and her son, Prince Andrew. She joined a number of Canadian and Olympic dignitaries, including Jules Leger, Governor-General of Canada, and his wife, Gabrielle, Canadian Prime Minister, Pierre Trudeau, and wife, Margaret. Robert Bourassa, Premier of the Province of Quebec, Roger Rousseau, Chief of the Montreal Olympic Organizing Committee, Sheila Dunlop, Lady Killarney, wife of the IOC President, Mayor of Montreal, Jean Drapeau, and his wife, Marie-Claire. The parade of athletes began moments later with the arrival of the Greek team and concluded with the entrance of the Canadian team some time later. All other teams entered the stadium according to French alphabetical order. Although they would eventually boycott the Games in the days to follow, a number of African delegations did march in the parade. Much of the music performed for the parade was arranged by Vic Vogel and was inspired by late Quebec composer André Mathieu. Immediately following the parade, a troupe of 80 women dancers dressed in white performed a brief dance in the outline of the Olympic rings. Following that came the official speeches, first by Roger Rousseau, head of the Montreal Olympic Organizing Committee, and Lord Killanene. Her Majesty was then invited to proclaim the Games open, which she did, first in French, then in English. Accompanied by the Olympic hymn, the Olympic flag was carried into the stadium and hoisted at the west end of the stadium. The flag was carried by 8 men and hoisted by 4 women, representing the 10 provinces and 2 territories of Canada. As the flag was hoisted, an all-male choir performed an a cappella version of the Olympic hymn. Once the flag was unfurled, a troupe of Bavarian dancers, representing Munich, host of the previous Summer Olympics, entered the stadium with the Antwerp flag. Following a brief dance, that flag was then passed from the mayor of Munich to the IOC president and then to the mayor of Montreal. Next came a presentation of traditional COI's folk dances. The two troupes merged in dance together to the strains of Vive la Compagnie, and exited the stadium with the Antwerp flag, which would be displayed at Montreal City Hall until the opening of the 1980 Summer Olympics in Moscow. 3 cannons were then fired. As the 80-member troupe of female dancers unfolded special crates that released doves and ribbons in the 5 Olympic colors, another trumpet fanfare announced the arrival of the Olympic flame. The torch was carried by 2 15-year-olds, Stéphane Préfontaine and Sander Henderson, chosen as representatives of the unity within Canada's linguistic heritage. This would also be the first time 2 people would light the Olympic flame, and Henderson would become only the 2nd woman to do the honors. The duo would make a lap of the stadium and then climbed a staircase on a special dais at the center of the stadium to set the Olympic flame alight in a temporary white aluminum cauldron. The flame was later transported to a more permanent cauldron just outside the running track to burn throughout the duration of the Games. A choir then performed the Olympic cantata as onlookers admired the Olympic flame. Then, the Youth of Canada took to the track to perform a colorful choreographed segment with flags, ribbons and a variety of rhythmic gymnast performers. The flag bearers of each team then circled around the speaker's dais as Pierre St. John recited the athlete's oath and Maurice Forget recited the judge's oath, in English and in French, with right hand over the heart and the Canadian flag clutched in the left. Finally, a choral performance of O Canada, in both French and English, marked the close of the opening ceremony, as the announcers concluded with a declaration of Vive les Jeux de Montréal. Long live the Montreal Games. The Montreal ceremony would be the last of its kind, as future Olympic ceremonies, beginning with the 1980 Moscow Games, would become more focused on theatrical, cultural and artistic presentations and less on formality and protocol. Highlights. At age 14, gymnast Nadia Comaneci of Romania scored 7 perfect 10.0 and won 3 gold medals, including the prestigious all-around. The scoreboard could hold only 3 digits and the score was shown as 1.00. In women's gymnastics, 3 gold medals were also won by Nelly Kim of the Soviet Union. Nikolai Andrianov of the USSR won 4 gold medals, including all-around. In men's gymnastics, Taro Aso was a member of the Japanese shooting team. 32 years later, he would be elected as the Prime Minister of Japan. The Games were opened by Elizabeth II, as head of state of Canada, and several members of the royal family attended the opening ceremonies. This was particularly significant, as these were the first Olympic Games hosted on Canadian soil. The Queen's daughter, Princess Anne, also competed in the Games as part of the British riding team. After a rainstorm doused the Olympic flame a few days after the Games had opened, an official relit the flame using his cigarette lighter. Organizers quickly doused it again and relit it using a backup of the original flame. The Israeli team walked into the stadium at the opening ceremony's march, wearing in their white suit like the national flag a black ribbon in commemoration of the 1972 Munich massacre. Women's events were introduced in basketball, handball and rowing. Canada, the host country, finished with 5 silver and 6 bronze medals. This was the first time that the host country of the Summer Games had not won any gold medals. This feat had occurred previously only in the Winter Games 1924 in Chamonix, France and 1928 in St. Moritz, Switzerland. This later occurred at the 1984 Winter Games in Sarajevo, Yugoslavia, and again at the 1988 Winter Olympics in Calgary, Canada. Because of the Munich massacre, security at these games was visible, as it had been earlier in the year at the Winter Games in Innsbruck, Austria. Viktor Tsarnaev of the Soviet Union won his 3rd consecutive triple jump gold medal, while Klaus Dibiase of Italy did the same in the platform diving event. Alberto Antorena of Cuba became the first man to win both the 400 meters and 800 meters at the same Olympics. Finland's Lasse Viren repeated his 1972 double win in the 5,000 and 10,000 meters runs. The first and to date only runner to successfully defend a 5,000 meters win. Viren finished 5th in the marathon, thereby failing to equal Emil Zatopek's 1952 achievements. Hasley Crawford wins Trinidad and Tobago's first gold medal in the 100-meter dash. Boris Onyshchenko, a member of the Soviet Union's modern pentathlon team, was disqualified after it was discovered that he had rigged his EQT to register a hit when there wasn't one. Because of this, the USSR modern pentathlon team was disqualified. Onyshchenko earned the enmity of other Soviet Olympic team members. For example, USSR volleyball team members threatened to throw him out of the hotel's window if they met him. Due to his disqualification, it was suggested that he earned the nickname of Boris Onyshchenko. 5 American boxers, Sugar Ray Leonard, Leon Spinks, Michael Spinks, Leo Randolph and Howard Davis Jr., won gold medals in boxing. This has been often called the greatest Olympic boxing team the United States ever had, and, out of the 5 American gold medalists in boxing, all but Davis went on to become professional world champions. Princess Anne of the United Kingdom was the only female competitor not to have to submit to a sex test. She was a member of her country's equestrian team. Japanese gymnast Shun Fujimoto performed on a broken right knee, and helped the Japanese team win the gold medal for the team championship. Fujimoto broke his leg on the floor exercise, and due to the closeness in the overall standings with the USSR, he hid the extent of the injury. With a broken knee, Fujimoto was able to complete his event on the rings, performing a perfect triple somersault dismount, maintaining perfect posture. He scored a 9.7, thus securing gold for Japan. Years later, when asked if he would do it again, he stated bluntly, "No, I would not." The East German women's swimming team won all but 2 gold medals. The U.S. men's swimming team won all but 1 gold medal. Luann Ryan won the women's archery gold for the USA. Ryan had never before competed at the international level. U.S. track and field athlete Bruce Jenner won the gold medal for decathlon, setting a world record of 8,634 points. Alex Oakley, the Canadian race walker, became the oldest track and field athlete to compete at the Olympic Games. He was aged 50, and taking part in his 5th Olympics. The New Zealand men's national field hockey team beat Australia to win gold, becoming the first non-Asian, European team to win the gold medal in hockey. It is also the first Olympic Games in which hockey was played on artificial turf. American George Mount placed 6th in the cycling road race. It was the best result in Olympic cycling for America since WW2. Mount's result helped America's revitalization in international cycling competition. The Polish men's volleyball team came back from being down 2 sets against the USSR to win the Olympic gold medal. 20-year-old Morehouse College student Edwin Moses sets a new world record in the 400 meters hurdles, less than a year after taking up the event. He is also America's only male individual track gold medalist. Thomas Bach of West Germany won a gold medal in the team foil event in fencing. He would later become IOC president. Venues: Montreal Olympic Park, Olympic Stadium. Opening, closing ceremonies: athletics, football, equestrian, Olympic pool, diving, modern pentathlon, swimming, water polo, Olympic velodrome, cycling, judo, Montreal Botanical Garden, athletics, modern pentathlon, Maurice Richard Arena, boxing, wrestling, Centre Pierre Charbonneau, wrestling, Olympic Village, athletes' residence. Venues in Greater Montreal Olympic Basin, Isle Notre Dame, canoeing, rowing, Claude Robillard Centre, handball, water polo, Centre Etienne Desmarteau, basketball, Saint Michel Arena, weightlifting, Paul Sauvé Centre, volleyball, Montreal Forum, basketball, boxing, gymnastics, handball, volleyball, Mount Royal Park, cycling, Quebec Autoroute 40 cycling, Streets of Montreal, athletics, Winter Stadium, Université de Montréal, fencing, modern pentathlon, Molson Stadium, McGill University, field hockey. Venues outside Montreal: Olympic shooting range, Lacadia, modern pentathlon, shooting, Olympic archery field, Joliet, archery, Olympic Equestrian Centre, Bromont, equestrian, modern pentathlon, Pavillon de l'Éducation Physique et des Sports de l'Université Laval, Quebec City, Quebec, handball preliminaries, Sherbrooke Stadium, Sherbrooke, Quebec, football preliminaries, Sherbrooke Sports Palace, Sherbrooke, Quebec, handball preliminaries, Portsmouth Olympic Harbour, Kingston, Ontario, sailing, Varsity Stadium, Toronto, Ontario, football preliminaries, Lansdowne Park, Ottawa, Ontario, football preliminaries. Medals awarded. The 1976 Summer Olympic program featured 198 events in the following 21 sports. Calendar. All times are in Eastern Daylight Time medal count. These are the top 10 nations that won medals at the 1976 Games. Canada placed 27th with only 11 medals in total, none of them being gold. Canada remains the only host nation of a Summer Olympics that did not win at least one gold medal in its own games. It also did not win any gold medals at the 1988 Winter Olympics in Calgary. However, Canada went on to win the most gold medals at the 2010 Winter Olympics in Vancouver. East Germany surpassed all expectations for a middle-sized nation by finishing second. However, the GDR's achievements were later fundamentally undermined by the expose of a serious and systematic scheme of doping by the East German sporting authorities. The GDR's medals tally would have been much smaller without this planned, state-led program of cheating. Participating national Olympic committees. 4 nations made their first Summer Olympic appearance in Montreal: Andorra, Antigua and Barbuda, Cayman Islands, and Papua New Guinea. Numbers in parentheses indicate the number of athletes from each nation that competed at the Games. Guyana, Mali and Swaziland also took part in the opening ceremony, but later joined to the Congolese-led boycott and withdrew from competition. Non-participating national Olympic committees. 28 countries boycotted the Games due to the refusal of the IOC to ban New Zealand, after the New Zealand national rugby union team had toured South Africa earlier in 1976. The boycott was led by Congo's official Jean-Claude Ganga. Some of the boycotting nations had already participated, however, the teams withdrew after the first day. Senegal and Ivory Coast were the only sovereign countries in Africa that did not boycott the event. Elsewhere, both Iraq and Guyana also opted to join the Congolese-led boycott. South Africa had been banned from the Olympics since 1964 due to its apartheid policies. Republic of China boycott. An unrelated boycott of the Montreal Games was the name issue between the Republic of China and the People's Republic of China. The rock team withdrew from the Games when Canada's Liberal government under Pierre Elliott Trudeau told it that the name Republic of China was not permissible at the Games because Canada had officially recognized the PRC. Canada attempted a compromise by allowing the ROC the continued use of its national flag and anthem in the Montreal Olympic activities. The ROC refused. Later in November 1976, the IOC recognized the PRC as the only recognized name of any Olympic activities representative of any Chinese government. In 1979, the IOC established in the Nagoya Resolution that the PRC agreed to participate in IOC activities if the Republic of China was referred to as Chinese Taipei. Another boycott would occur before the ROC would accept the provisions of the 1979 resolution, although the reason that so many other countries boycotted were not all the same as the ROC.